Most people want to see your story through visuals. That's your first touch point, to have something that's captivating when they go to your website or landing page that aligns. Those are all things that will aid in a successful branding. Welcome to Velvet Ventures,
where we talk about life, marriage, and the pursuit of entrepreneurship.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Channing.
And now a word from our sponsors, Pros Make Ready Sanitizing Services, a disinfecting and sanitizing service in Oklahoma that uses approved EPA hospital-grade disinfectant against germs, mold, COVID-19, and other viruses that live on surfaces and in the air. They help knock down sickness between 50 and 85%. They can do residential or commercial. They have kept us healthy and safe and allergy-free all year long. There's a link below this episode for more information. So what are we going to talk about today?
We were going to talk about photography, like product photography.
Oh, yeah. We just had our branding photo shoot.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I think covering, kind of going over, what we know about hiring a product photographer and being someone getting hired for product photography or branding photography.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the agenda.
Sounds good. Well, I think first it's important to know what mood or what vibe you're wanting to go to, what story you're wanting to tell. Because at least for me and how my brain works, it's like there should be one story that you're focusing on in that branding photo shoot, or one type of vibe. And so you can do multiple different sets, if you will, or different locations. You can change outfits a whole bunch, but it should have a general, consistent vibe or mood. And so for us, we created a mood board of here's some poses that we know we want, and then here's just some that are the general vibe of what we're going for. And then we work with the photographer so that starting, she knows kind of what the expectation is. And I think if you don't have a photographer that you work with consistently, knowing your mood board first is going to help you pick a better photographer, because different photographers specialize in different types of lighting or different types of moods or different types of editing. So if you don't know the mood that you're going for, if you don't already have a photographer, it's going to be harder to find a photographer and then get a mood board put together.
Yeah, I think you want to... You need to find someone in the niche that you, whatever you fit into. So, you don't want to hire a baby photographer, a newborn photographer to do your, dark and moody, Halloween shoot or whatever. So I think when looking at hiring someone, you really need to find out, does y'all's visions align? So, if you like a more cinematic, polished, darker vibe, you should find someone who specializes in that, or else, no one has a good experience. You don't love your product or your finished product, and then it's going to be harder for you to recommend that person. So, I think that it's just there's a lot of things to consider when you're hiring someone. Do they specialize in outdoor, indoor, studio, or...
Well, and then making sure that you line with that person personality-wise.
Right. Because
taking photos, at least for me, super awkward.
Yeah.
I am not a good model. I have to really be coaxed, or, it takes me a while to warm up into getting more natural-looking shots. And so I can't typically just go with any photographer.
Yeah. Well, you need to find someone who's going to make you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because on the day of your shoot, typically, if you're doing a half-day shoot or whatever for your product or yourself, it's going to be stressful, because you're going to be you're getting ready, you're doing logistics, you're getting your hair done, makeup done, clothes, props, whatever it may be. Unless you just have a team, but as small businesses, I think most of us don't have a team that can just get everything ready and we just walk up and say, okay, here I am. Where are my clothes? Where are my props? So having someone who can make you feel comfortable during that to help alleviate some of that stress. Because
Right.
if you're up here, your photos are probably going to show that you were elevated, and it's just going to make for a much less pleasant experience if if everything that is going on is just stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding someone who makes you feel comfortable, who is in line with your vision, I think that those are all things that will aid in a successful shoot.
Yeah, so definitely mood board.
Yep.
Pick a photographer that aligns with the mood board. Then make sure that photographer that aligns with the mood board aligns with you personality-wise.
Yeah.
I would say get wardrobe together. Bring several different options. You might not use them all, but it's better to have too many options than not have enough. And if you've got sentimental pieces, like make sure that the photographer knows what's important to you. So like for ours, I have a sweater that's my pawpaws. And I said, I don't care what outfit this goes with, but I definitely want some photos with this sweater in them. And then I said, I know I want some in some hats, because typically I don't have my hair down. So I don't want the whole shoot to be me without a hat.
Right.
And so going into it, the photographer knew those things. And so as we were taking different shots, she could say, hey, now let's throw that sweater on. Or, hey, let's use the sweater as like a blanket. Hey, go ahead and let's take this same photo, but with a hat. And so that way we have some options as to almost every single one of the poses or the stations that we're using. And you don't have to go to a fancy studio. Like we did ours in our home.
Right.
And we used the props that are in our home.
Right.
And so you don't have to, there's definitely ways that you can be frugal with this, but I think that making sure you're not skimping on the right photographer and the right personality match, that's where all of our money should go for branding photo shoots.
Yeah, and I think that it also needs to be thought about, with your brand, are you the brand?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you selling a environment? Do you own a co-working space and it's not so much about the people, it's about the place.
Right.
Or is it about the people? Like for us, it's about people. So for us, it was very much, this is how we live. This is where we would be. You would be on the porch, or you would be sitting down doing that. So it's like, what are the things that you do? Now let a professional come in and pose you a little more
right.
photogenic.
I mean, I was literally working.
Right. And so I think having someone who has an eye for that can
mm-hmm.
come in there and say, how do you live, or how do you work, or how would you just naturally be in this environment if that's what you're going for?
Right.
And so I think knowing what you're going for, are you telling a story about people,
mm-hmm.
a product, a place?
Yeah. Do yourself a favor and make sure your branding photo shoot is not just all headshots. I think that's where there's a lot of companies that they'll have a branding photo shoot, but it's just a series of different headshots. It's not really like telling a story. It's just a headshot at the park and a headshot in front of a brick wall and a headshot in front of, and so making sure there's really a story that's being told or an emotion that's coming forward.
Right.
Because we're in this age where people don't want to buy from a company. They don't care about your company. They want to know who owns the company.
Right. Do
they align with who owns the company? Who are you? What's your family like? And if they can get on board with you, they'll get on board with your company. But it's people first.
Right.
And so if your photos aren't showing that, and again, like if you have a product, show the outcome. Tell the story of the outcome of the product.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing to consider is, if you're doing a product, for instance, like people want to see them and visualize them using it in an environment. So, taking a picture of, your product in front of, we'll just use a brick wall again as an example. Would you ever use that product in front of a brick wall? Mm-hmm. Same thing with like clothing lines. Like when people put clothing on people and then they put them on couches, or they put them, folding laundry, and they can see how it fits or how it's supposed to hang off of a body, when it's in its everyday environment and stuff, like those things aid in your product being more relatable. And so using the product in the environment in which it's intended to be used, or can aid in people visualizing using it, is going to be much more beneficial to, you know, getting the outcome you want from your shoot.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, for us, we are not, we don't have a big office somewhere. We're not strolling down the street for fun.
Yeah, I don't walk
downtown.
voluntarily.
Right. So like we wouldn't get dressed up and we wouldn't do like a downtown shoot.
Right.
Our
mood was blasé bougie.
Right. And it's just because that's who we are and that's how we live. That's how we work. And so I think that being very self-aware of what your business's vibe is and what you want to attract.
Right.
Because like we don't want to necessarily be attracting these like super high-end, super pain-in-the-butt type people who, you know, aren't going to be good fits.
I don't even necessarily think that it's about that. It's about I'm not okay portraying myself as something different than I am.
Right.
If we attract high-end people, then that's totally fine.
Sure.
And everybody has the potential to be a pain in the butt.
Sure.
But I'm not going to dress up in a suit or, you know, curl my hair and make sure the top of my head's done, like,
right.
or worry about my hair getting in my face. I'm going to throw on a hat. I'm probably going to show up in sweats, but my makeup will be done and I'm going to act and, you know, I'm going to act professionally, but I'm not going to dress in a way that's not in line with who I am, because that's what's going to make us, that's why we've aligned so well with our clients, is you are you, I am me, and that allows them to be them. And when we actually know who they are as a company and as people, then we can service them a lot better.
Right. Which I think is my point with, you know, if we were to portray ourselves as a company who, you know, basically if you're advertising yourself for someone, like your goal then is you're trying to attract that person. And I think that we try to be very authentic in that we are not, like, I just envision like a Wolf of Wall Street type deal. Like, we are not a, you know, forceful. We are not a, you know, you're going to do it this way, or it's grind, because that's not who we are.
Right.
And so I think that making sure that we're not portraying ourselves as that, because we don't want to attract that.
Yeah, our story needs to line up.
I don't want someone to come in here and say, like, you know, try to come in here and be pushy and like, you work for me and you're going to do this, and it's like, nope.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's very important for me that we don't set that kind of tone, because I'm not going to just do anything. I'm not at your whim for you to tell me how to run my business or how you need me to fit your business.
Sure. But I think that's why branding photos are so important, because, I mean, you know, now we're talking about your relationship with a client, but we started with just a photo.
Right.
Because that's where it leads, is your photo tells people a story about who you are, what you accept, just like when you go out into the world.
Right.
You are a representation of this family. You know, that's something that you heard very often.
Right.
And so our photos are the same way. That's a representation of our company. And so if we're not careful and we don't represent ourselves correctly, then we're going to misalign accidentally with clients. Yeah. Or we're going to look back in 3 months and go, this is not where we wanted to be.
Right.
And that, like, you can change. You can go have another photo shoot, change up your marketing, completely do a rebranding. Like, if you're sitting in your business and you're thinking, I don't want to be here, then it's probably not necessarily a business issue. It's a branding issue. And companies rebrand all the time. Yeah. I mean, there's companies out there that rebrand every single year. They don't do a full haul, but like, there's nothing wrong with you changing things up if you are not attracting the people that you want to work with. Right.
I just heard a thing the other day that was talking about, you know, Nike always had a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
And now Nike has now they're on 3 months. They operate
I love that.
in 3-month increments, which I am impressed with, because like that person was talking about, they have board members, they have shareholders, they have the stock exchange. Like, everybody's here like, well, how do we predict what the company's going to do if we don't have even a 1-year plan? Like, how are you not going to have a 1-year plan? It's like, we need to pivot.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I love is Nike's, they saw one of the biggest benefits of being a small business is we're able to shift really, really quickly.
Right.
And that's why the big dogs still have to keep up with small business.
Right.
There's a lot of us, and we're very, very swift. So when the market changes, we're typically the first at the door knocking on that opportunity.
Right.
And then the big businesses are coming in later. And what Nike has done is said, we want that benefit. How do we create that in this big business?
Right.
And then there's so many small companies that they want to be the big business. So they put all these policies and procedures and meetings and all this junk in place. And it stops them from actually reaching the goal that they're trying to obtain.
Yeah.
You know, and so like photo shoots, we just had fun with ours. We picked a mood. We picked a story.
Right.
We didn't worry about, you know, what everybody else is going to think. We just told the story of us.
Yeah.
And how we live. And
well, I think it's also important to note that, you know, when you do a branding shoot and stuff, like, this is just something, it's just a tool.
mm-hmm.
And so this is not now, well, I just paid, you know, all this money, and so this is my brand now. It's like, I mean, there's some companies that may go 2 years without ever updating their photos, but then there's some who, like us, I mean, we have every intention on every probably 3 or 4 months
mm-hmm.
having all new, because I would like to hit seasons.
Right.
You know, and so
it does also help that our photographer is your sister, my sister-in-law. Sure. Hannah, shout out to Hannah Melson Photography. But she takes all of our photos, including our family photos.
Yeah.
But
I just think that when you find that person who gives you that outcome every time, year over year.
Right.
I mean, is there stuff that, you know, she doesn't do that I would love to do someday, like, you know, drone footage or certain kinds of videography? Like, sure, but that's not her forte. Her forte is, if I need any kind of, you know, people and or product photography, like, I don't have to ask, hey, can you do this?
Right.
It's, hey, I need this done.
Yeah, what's your schedule look like?
What's your schedule look like? And also, I need you to provide X, or I'm providing all this stuff, and here's where we're going to do it.
Right. You
tell me, you know, we're going to be outside. Do we need to be early morning or evening? Do we need to have an auxiliary? Because, you know, what if it rains?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, in Oklahoma, it's weather can change on a dime. So having a contingency plan is always a good idea when thinking about, you know, outdoor shoots. But even doing indoor shoots, like, we're going to do another one where, you know, it's evening time to where we can use the natural light coming through windows and do some play on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are just all sorts of things to keep in mind.
Yeah. And make sure if you don't have lighting, like a ring light that can travel around with you and you're doing inside, ask the photographer to bring one. Because even if they don't have one, as a photographer, they should know somebody that does have one, and you might have to pay to rent it. But if you're indoor at all, you definitely want some lighting that can move around with you. And that can be as simple as like some lamps or a ring light, or like you can improvise 100%.
Just not all overhead lighting.
Right.
Because that's just one of those things that, you know, you want that light to be natural in the shadows and and all
if
that
you
stuff.
have to use some foil to
do some reflecting.
to reflect some light around the room, just something. And if you're just starting out and you're not related to a photographer and you can't afford a photographer, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking some high quality cell phone photos, and just realize that they might need to be edited. And so you're probably gonna have to spend a little bit more time there because you're not spending the money, and just making sure that you're using the right settings, which you can YouTube and just say, like, I'm in this kind of environment. What settings should I have on my camera?
I mean, so for that, I'll just plug in Moment, which is a lens company for like cell phones, and they have all kinds of photography stuff. But I think it's shopmoment.com. I've been using them for years, and now because cell phone cameras have gotten so good, you may not necessarily need their lenses that they have, but they do have nice like UV filters and stuff that you can put on your phone. But what's nice is they have a free app that will allow you, and it basically gets into your phone's settings and allows you to fully manipulate your phone's, you know, ISO, shutter speed, all these things inside the phone app right there on the screen, so you're not having to edit as much in post, and you're able to kind of control a lot of that.
When it captures it in a raw photo.
Right. Yeah, you can have it capture it in multiple photos, and you can do Pro RAW, you can do RAW, it shoots 4K video, different frame rates. So if you're going to use a cell phone, which is 100% cool, using something like that and not just using your native camera app, because even if you are going to use like an iPhone native app, make sure try turning your HDR off, so that way it's not using all that high dynamic range to basically filter through all these different things to get the best shot. Like, let you be the person who decides. And if you don't have an eye for it, then use it. But there are ways to manipulate a cell phone. It's not even manipulate, it's just knowing how to use the settings on a phone's camera to get great shots.
Yeah.
Introducing Dallowry, your trusted partner in business optimization. From marketing strategies to automations and content, Dallowry helps entrepreneurs like you soar to new heights. Ready to level up? Schedule a consultation today. Time to focus on growth. For more information, there's a link below this episode.
And then ways that you use branding photos once you're done. So you've gone through the whole thing, you've got your mood board, you've got your photographer, you personality align, you've got your outfits, you've got your setting, you've got your lights, and now you've taken all the photos and you're done. Then what? Why have branding photo shoots? What's the purpose? What marketing materials are we even using these for?
I think it really just depends also on what your company is, but most people want to see your story through visuals before maybe necessarily reading. So if that's your first touch point on social media and being able to have something that's captivating when they go to your website or landing page, that's to have something there that's quality and that aligns with what you're doing, not just colors.
Right.
Will have you wanting to look maybe deeper. Yeah.
When again, like for us, we're going to use our branding shots like it's the intro for our video podcast. Those photos will be there. Those will be used on our Instagram. Those will be inserted into videos. Those will be used as graphics. Those will be used on our website. Those will, basically anywhere and everywhere that those photos can be used, they will be. Because we can create graphics on Canva all day long, and those can be beautiful and they can be very educational and everything else. But again, if the people don't know us, they don't care. Anybody can make something pretty on Canva now with all the templates that are there. It doesn't take, you don't have to be a graphic designer anymore to make it look like you have a graphic designer. And so what people want to see is behind the curtain. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to see who you are. And so I recommend too, we have some blooper photos from our branding photo shoot. We're 100% going to use those. Like me and my double chins, and blinking in shots. And because it's important that we bring back the human into the company. And if all we use are these high pristine, edited and just polished versions of ourselves, that for us and in what we do, that's not 100% the authentic truth. Sometimes we're a mess and we're going to mess up. And our whole kind of thing is let's mess up until we figure it out. And so for us, if we don't include the mess ups, we published our pilots today, when this was recorded, we published our pilots, and that was us testing this equipment out and learning how to use it. And the audio is not great. And the video is not super high quality, and we didn't have a backdrop, and we didn't know what we needed until we ran through it and we saw and we figured it out. And instead of holding those back and saying, oh, those are not very good. Of course they're not good. They're our first 2 takes. They're not going to be good. But we're going to publish them anyways. Because it's important that for us, that we're just authentic. And like, we put in the work. We want to show other people too, like, you're not going to get it right the first time. It doesn't mean you stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important just, everybody wants to see someone who's genuine, because that's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're in a business of people. And so, I mean, it's kind of like, you have that influencer who maybe always flashes their supercar or their expensive jewelry and stuff. And it's like, so you're unreachable. You're not available in this capacity unless you run in their ring or you have a net worth of blank. And so I think that, that's not what we're going for anyway. And so it's, we're not going to take pictures with cars that are not ours. And we're not going to, try to brand ourselves as being luxury in the sense that, look at our fancy things or look at my new this or my that. And that's because we're not selling those products. And so why would we?
Right.
That's not who we are. And so I think that it's very important to also understand that about, you and your brand, your company's brand, and, are you accessible?
Right.
Because I think that the story you tell through your imaging kind of tells that. Like, are you, I use the word high maintenance. Are you high maintenance, or are you, an everyday kind of person who's very approachable? Or are you, are you not? And so I don't think that there's a wrong or a right way. I think it's just whatever fits best within whatever aligns best with you.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of flexibility in branding. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's important that as a company, you draw a line in the sand. And like, nobody tells you where that line has to be. But like, you do have to stand for something or you'll stand for nothing.
Right.
But like, our branding will morph. It has morphed.
Yeah.
And even like my insurance brokerage that's been open for 2 years, like, it's morphed. It'll continue to morph because if it's about the person, it's about the human, we're constantly changing.
Right.
So there is some consistency so that we can keep the trust that we've built and because there's things that we stand for. But why would the company also not grow with us?
Right.
That would just be silly.
Well, I think I look at that too in a way that, if you look back on, say, like your high school days, you're probably not the same person as you were. And you probably don't even have the same friends or run in the same circles because you grow up. And I think that is not a bad thing at all. I think that, I even just look back at who I was a year ago and how much, maybe nothing drastic. Like, I probably look the same. There's a lot of, I haven't changed who I am, but like, I want to be able to change monthly and get better and find things and change habits. And because I think if we're always engaging.
Well, I want the change to be as drastic as we were looking at pictures of the kids this morning or yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
And it was just a year and a half ago that we were looking at these pictures. We're like, oh my gosh, they're little babies.
Yeah.
Like, they're so small. And I want my personal development to look like that. I want people to look at me in a year and a half and go, oh my gosh, like, look at how far.
Right.
Look at how different. Look how much she's grown. And I want my growth to be drastic.
Right. Well, I think for me, there's a lot of things that play into it, but it's kind of like with a lot of things, you stay in that rut. And it's not that you're moving backwards, but, you're just sitting there sustaining, And so, and to me, it's about getting better, one thing at a time and taking on, it could be as small a thing of, waking up 10 minutes earlier, or it could do that and like just having that compound effect on your life over time. And so, I'm not trying to do anything drastic, but those little steps over time make such a big impact on when I can look back, and even just with us and looking back 6-7 years ago and seeing like, oh my word, I would be, not that I'm ashamed or anything, but it's definitely like, wow, we have come such a long way as individuals, as business owners, as, a couple, as parents. And so all these things, have just taken time.
Mm-hmm. And
so I think that same thing with a business, like, you should always have the core. Like, I think at our core, we're very much, I don't even want to say at our core we're the same. I think we have a lot of the same principles, morals and stuff. But I think that even those have been fine-tuned, mm-hmm. and those are continually getting sharpened. Mm-hmm. But I think same thing with the company. You should have the same moral compass, and the same objective. But you can be playful today. You can be more serious tomorrow.
Right.
You can be, encouraging the next day. Like, you can, and you should be changing. I mean, why would you want to stay the same?
Right. Because
once you're the same for so long, you most of the time become irrelevant.
Right.
And you're no longer effective in what you do. Same thing with, if you don't change your parenting style based on the age of the child, at some point your parenting becomes ineffective, mm-hmm. because the child outgrows you.
Right.
Well,
I have to tell the funny story about the other night.
Which one?
So, our daughter and I get in arguments about her hair care. And it's to the point where I'm so sick of repeating the same thing. So she came down from she was taking a shower. She came downstairs afterwards, and she walked through the living room. And I started whispering, and I was just whispering at her, "You need to go wash your hair again." But I'd say, "You need to go wash your hair again." And then she started whispering back. And so we were having like this argument essentially in whisper format. And you were like, "Why is everyone whispering?" And I was like, well, I'm at the point where I'm just so sick of arguing, and it seems nicer whispering it. And you were like, I'm not against this this theory.
No.
But like a year ago, that would have never happened. Like, it would have been, me raising my voice, her raising her voice, both of us having an explosion, and then we go to separate corners, know? And instead we're here like whisper fighting for 2 minutes about hair care. Same conversation, just a different format, but it actually went a lot better.
Yeah.
But anyways, that just made me think of that.
Oh. Yep.
But if you haven't done a branding shoot, we highly recommend it.
Yeah.
If you haven't done one recently, we highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And even if it's just you getting a friend and snapping some photos, I mean, this is probably at least our 10th branding photo shoot, but we just didn't realize we were doing branding photo shoots before,
Yeah, I think we started out doing, using a cell phone. I mean, even just since we started doing this stuff, and kind of going around and like, let's go around to the city and let's go find some different spots that we like, that we frequent, and kind of get some in the wild, if you will, shots. And most of them, they're good.
Yeah, that was our date day.
Yeah, but it's definitely like neither one of us are professionals,
right?
And
I have to take like 300 photos of you because I don't have an eye for photography.
Right.
So I just move around a lot and take a lot of photos because I don't know what's good and what's not until I see it like done, and then I'm like, not good.
Yeah. Well, that's the other hard thing too, is like, when you are doing this, like, let's say, like for you and me doing it, like, you are not a good photographer.
Mm-mm.
I am a novice, but I have more ability to direct you. Put your hand here, pose like this, do this, and you don't have any of that for me. So then it makes me, makes mine harder to get because I'm relying on someone who, one,
I can't tell you where to put your hand because I don't know what looks good.
You're just like, so I just go stand somewhere, and then the whole time it's like, well, you really should put that leg out forward because now it looks like you have chicken legs, and so that's just another reason why it's important to have somebody else. And again, even if it's not a photographer, have somebody else who, can at least direct you maybe and hold your cell phone or use theirs to take the pictures. So you're not relying on each other, because if you're anything like us, like one person is better than the other at capturing it or being able to see the frame and knowing like I can edit this out or whatnot, and the other person doesn't catch that there's reflections in the background and you can see them holding the phone.
Yeah.
You know,
one of the things that you're really good at that I'm not good at too is the posing. Like, because for me, I'm like, there's this, I can't remember what TV show it's on, but there's this grandma that they're trying to get a family photo, right? So grandma goes and grandma sits and grandma's very, 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 very still. And they're like, Grandma, the photo's done. Like, you can move around. And she's like, oh, really? You know, she was expecting it to take, you know, the ching-ching, and then it has to develop all the way, and then you get to move.
Right.
And that's basically how I model.
Yeah. You just sit there lifeless. Like, am I supposed to, I'm like, no, you need to be moving around a little bit. Like, not super fast, not jerky, but you need to just kind of, like, be kind of moving around in different angles and positions and stuff. And so,
I'm like a mannequin.
Yeah. Like you have to grab your arm, set it here.
Physically tell me or move me.
Yeah. Like, you can be normal, and as soon as the camera comes out, you're like a kid on picture day.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many resources out there for doing this exact thing.
Mm-hmm. And if you need help planning them, or you don't know who to hire, like, there's companies out there, like, that's something that Dallowry helps with. Yeah. There's other media companies that they might not take the photos, but they've got a ton of photographers that they work with, and they can match you based on your mood board.
Yeah.
And they can help you create a mood board. Like, maybe you just need one of those services.
Right.
Like, you have a photographer and all that. You just need help figuring out what you even want to do or what story you want to tell. And so utilize those resources. There's tons of free ones on YouTube. There's tons of companies that can help you out. Mm-hmm. And just find what you need to be as successful as possible.
Right. Well, and I think at the very least, you know, a lot of companies, I do this sometimes where, you know, if you're given just a blank piece of paper, it's really hard to get started writing whatever it is. And so sometimes what might be best is, again, like a service that we do, which is just figuring out your branding. Mm-hmm. Here's your 5 colors and here's your 3 typography or your fonts and stuff to use. And so those can be the launching points that you're like, sweet, very low cost of entry.
Right.
But now you have this, now you can go.
Right.
Because now you could take that to a t-shirt company. You could take that into Canva. Mm-hmm. And then you can start creating all your own graphics. You can take that. So, I mean, it's like that one little step is that first sentence or that first word written on the page that
it's the paragraph prompt.
Right. Now you can just sit there and you can go. And so I think that at the very least, if you're getting analysis by paralysis with, you know, it's not just, well, I like red. Okay, well, there's an infinite number of shades of red. Mm-hmm. What red? You know, and so figuring those things out and having
knowing the science behind the colors.
Right. Yeah, what do they invoke? Mm-hmm. You know? So when people see your brand colors, whether they know it or not, they're thinking about what it is that you're conveying through those colors. Mm-hmm. So I think at the very least, you know, especially if you're a newer company, or you just haven't done this yet, you know, find somebody. And if you feel like you keep getting bogged down, hire someone. And hire someone who can come in there and, you know, prices range wildly. But like for us, and I know there's several other businesses that they have, that's a very low cost of entry for you to get started. For then now you can go get all kinds of free apps or templates and stuff to then start creating all your branding.
And speaking of branding, next episode, we're going to talk about ChatGPT and some of our recommendations, some of our top prompts, and how to utilize that. So once you have your branding photos, how are you going to create the content? Yeah,
and how to use some of these AI tools in learning how to use prompts to help it generate who you are.
AI is your friend. You just need to know how to use it. Well, thanks for joining.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Velvet Ventures. If you'd like more information about who we are, what we do, or you want to follow us or any of our companies, then feel free to check out the link below. Other than that, thank you so much to our sponsors for making this episode possible. See you next time.